Today's lesson is modeling fraction division, and we're working with TEKS 5.3J and 6.3C. So take a moment to write that at the top of your page and in your table of contents. Okay, let's read those TEKS together. TEKS 5.3J. It says, I can represent division of a unit fraction by a whole number and the division of a whole number by a unit fraction, such as 1/3 divided by 7 and 7 divided by 1/3, using objects and pictorial models, including an area model. So that TEKS right there tells us that we're going to be working with models today. And 6.3c says, I can represent integer operations with concrete models. So today we're strictly going to be working with models. All right, you will need your pencil, your journal, and you could probably even use one marker. Okay, the first problem says Susan has a 1/2 gallon of milk. She divides the milk equally into 5 glasses. How much milk is in each glass? So let's talk about what the question is starting with, what it is that we are doing. We know that we have 1/2 gallon of milk. We can see right here, here's a picture of a 1/2 gallon. And she divides the milk equally into 5 glasses. So she's got 5 glasses. Funny looking glasses here. And she's going to take this 1/2 gallon and she's going to put it into each one of these glasses. And so we've got to figure out how much milk is going to go in each one of these glasses. So we can see that we're dividing because we got 1/2 gallon and we're going to be putting it into 5 glasses. All right, so 1/2 gallon and we're dividing it by 5. Now this picture here is kind of just a picture to show me that I'm going to be dividing because I'm starting with the 1/2 and I'm going to put it into 5 glasses. But I need a better picture that will actually give me an answer because this doesn't give me an answer. So I know that I have 1/2 gallon. So let's draw a square. And how much milk do we have? A 1/2 gallon. So I'm going to show a 1/2. So this is my 1/2, all of this down here. And you can actually take your pencil and just shade it in really lightly. This is my 1/2 gallon. Now I'm going to switch to another color. So you can switch to your marker if you want to. And this 1/2 gallon, I'm dividing it by 5. So I've got to divide this equally into 5 pieces. So if I divide this into 5 pieces, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's about as close as to equal I can draw it. So each one of these represents how much is in each glass. Well, how much milk is in each glass? Well, I only started with 1/2 gallon. And so I've got to figure out what part of the whole each one of these is represented. So that means the whole thing needs to be divided into pieces. This is my answer right here. This is not 1/5 because that's my whole is cut into how many pieces? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces. So one of these is the value of it is 1/10. So how much is going into each glass? 1/10 of a gallon. All right, let's try another one. Brian wants to give 1/3 of a pound. Oops, there's a spelling mistake right there. Go ahead, Mrs. Ogden made a mistake. Brian wants to give 1/3 pound of unpopped popcorn to each of his classmates. If he has 7 pounds of popcorn, how many classmates can receive 1/3 a pound of popcorn? So let's think about what we're starting here. Before we draw a picture, before we write a problem, let's think about what we're starting with. He has 7 pounds of popcorn and he wants to give 1/3 a pound to his classmates, but we don't know how many classmates that he can give them to. That's what we're trying to figure out. But we do know that he's starting with 7 pounds of popcorn. So let's draw 7. And these are 7 holes. So I'm going to draw 7 holes. And you could use circles, rectangles, squares. I'm going to use rectangles. Okay, so here's my 7 pounds of popcorn. How much does he want to give to each friend? 1/3 of a pound. So that means that each of my 7 pounds, it has to be divided into thirds. So this is for one friend. This is one friend. But he's got to give all of this away. So we're going to split all of this up. If I look at what I've drawn, this is going to a friend, this is going to a friend, this is going to a friend. I took my 7 pounds and I divided them into groups of thirds. And how many groups did I make? Well, if this is a friend and this is a friend and this is a friend, I know 3 friends can eat 1 pound. And I have that 7 times. So my answer is 21. That's how many thirds I have in there. So 7 wholes divided into groups of thirds gives me 21 groups. All right, let's do another one. Mrs. Banks has 1/3 a pot of coffee left. She wants to share the coffee equally among 5 people. What fraction of a pot of coffee will each person receive? Okay, think about what you're starting with. You know that she's got a pot of coffee, so I'm just going to draw a little pot. Kind of a round bottom, the handle on it. She has 1/3 of a pot of coffee, so that means this is cut into thirds, and she has 1/3 of it right there. This is all the coffee that she has. She has 1/3. She is starting with 1/3. And it says that she wants to share that with 5 people. So that means she's taking this third and she's dividing it into 5 groups, 5 cups for 5 different people. So my equation is 1/3 divided by 5. This is all she has, is the 1/3. And I need to divide that into 5 pieces. 1, 2, 3, and then there's 4, 5. And it wants to know what fraction of the pot, the whole pot. So this is what each person gets. But how much is that of the whole pot? Well, that means I've got to figure out how many pieces that would be in the whole pot. My crooked lines. So I have 3 groups of 5, that's 15. So each one of these pieces is 1/15. So each person gets 1/15 of the pot. Okay, here's another one. I want you to read this, pause the video, and try to work it on your own. If you need a little bit of help, just play the video for a little bit to get you a head start. Okay, I see that Madison starts with 5 feet of ribbon, and she needs to cut the ribbon into sections that are 1/2 foot long. How many 1/2 foot sections can Madison cut from her ribbon? So I'm just want to think about what we're starting with here. She has 5 feet of ribbon, so I'm going to draw a ribbon. And she has 5 feet of it, so I'm just gonna split it into 1 foot sections. I'm just gonna estimate something like this: 3, 4, 5. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet. So she started with 5 feet of ribbon. That's how much she has. So she's starting with 5. So my equation is 5 divided by, and then she's going to cut each section into 1/2 foot long. So if this is a foot, she's going to cut it in half. So she's 5 feet divided into sections that are 1/2 foot long. So I'm going to cut each one of these. How many 1/2 foot sections can Madison cut from her ribbon? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. She can cut 10. Mary made a pan of fudge. She cut the fudge into 3 equal sections and gave 1/3 of the fudge to her teacher, Mrs. Ogden. Delicious. Mrs. Ogden cut her section of fudge into 8 equal pieces to share with some students as shown in the model. So let's just pause and look at the model. It says she made a pan of fudge, so this whole thing was her pan of fudge. She cut the fudge into 3 equal sections. So she did 1, 2, 3. And she gave 1/3 of the fudge to her teacher. So this is what she gave to Mrs. Ogden. Mrs. Ogden cut her section of the fudge into 8 equal pieces. So she cut it into 8 pieces. And it says equal, so they're all the same size. To share with some students. So this is what Mrs. Ogden had. Each piece is a fractional part of the original pan of fudge. So that's saying that each one of these is a fractional part of the whole pan. Not just Mrs. Ogden's part, but the whole pan. What fractional part of the original pan is represented by each of Mrs. Ogden's pieces? So this, it wants to know what fraction is this piece of the whole pan. So let's think about what our math equation would be first. How much did Mrs. Ogden start with? 1/3. And what did Mrs. Ogden do with it? Yeah, she cut it into pieces. So cutting something into pieces is division. And then my answer is one of these pieces. So it's 1. But what's the value of this piece? Well, in order to figure that out, we've got to divide the whole pan into the same amount of equal pieces. Mrs. Ogden also cut it down the middle. So how many pieces were in the original pan? 24. So each student got 1/24 of the original pan of brownies. Okay, the next one you're going to try to model and draw on your own. So pause the video. When you restart the video, the entire answer will be on the screen. Here is my model and my equation. I had half a pie, and I'm splitting it for 6 people. And it wants to know what fraction of the whole pie. So I've got to split the whole pie. And it ends up being 12 pieces. So each piece is worth 1/12. Okay, you have a front and back worksheet in your packet that's over modeling division. Take your time, take a look at the pictures. You might have to think about it a little bit, and that's all right.